100 grams.
I'm Pastor Jonathan Everett, pastor Rock of Ages Baptist Church in the greatest city in the world, New Orleans, Louisiana.
All right, so tell us about where you're from.
Hey man, I'm from what we call the Fishing Housing Developments. Now, the Fisher Project, we used to call it 1.5 back then. Algiers, West Bank of New Orleans, born on Eagle Street. I don't know how we got way over there. That's a conversation me and my mom are still trying to have. And just coming up, man, in them jets was, I ain't gonna even front, like I miss it. Cause I think it's like, I don't want to use big words in the corner store, but it's like a quagmire. Cause like, you know, when we was coming up in the projects, man, we used to easily just knock on somebody's door and borrow some sugar. Or we can easily knock on the door and say, man, do you have some flour? Or we can easily knock on the door and say, well, I don't have a broom. Can you let us use your broom right quick and let us sweep up? You know, that nowadays we have the plush of houses and behind gates, but we don't have that unity and that community like we used to. So every now and then, man, I'd be sitting back and I'd be like, man, I wish we had that type of environment, but I wish we had this type of lifestyle, right? And unfortunately, until we really think of how valuable each other is, we can get back to that place. So growing up in the project was a beautiful thing, running through breezeway. By the way, hold on, let me stop. This concept is amazing. I can't stop saying it, right? Because I remember going to the corner store with food stamps, books of food stamps, where we used to play marbles on a court, Big Whitney, Lil Whitney, Hindi, you know, I can't keep shouting that out, right? LaBeouf, and I used to go to the corner store with all of the food stamps, man, get my Little Debbie's and meat specials and big shots and all the rest of those things, man. I feel like eating one of these Hershey's right now. So growing up, man, it was a beautiful thing, man.
So your childhood is basically something that you wouldn't regret. What could you tell us that you've just learned from your childhood and that you take with you now today?
Oh man, it was 12 of us. It's 12 of us. Just imagine that, and we stayed in a 3-bedroom project, and we had the double bed. We had the bunk beds, right? Where all of us slept wherever. You know, the lesson that I really would take from my childhood is to value people, man, and to really get to know people before you judge them. And we had a lot of that coming up, you know, with people like they automatically kind of have this presupposition or assumption of who you are before they get to meet you. And when we finally met the person, we fell in love with them. You know, some of those concepts today is like totally different because everybody, you know, once it's one beef or one argument, that's it. There's no restoration. There's no coming back together and try to find some commonality. So coming up in my childhood, man, being around my brothers, my sisters, we always had something to do in the house. It's 11 of us, man. It's either, and then the other thing is we stayed outside. You know, like I said, we'll play on the monkey balls. You know what I mean? We playing basketball, full out game on the monkey balls. I'm talking about fresh Grant Hills, fresh shoes, dirty. All right. By the time we get home, mom's done two-pieced us, right? We jumping the fence at Mar Henderson Elementary School. We balling. We playing football after it rain, puddle water. We playing court against court. Hindi versus Whitney, Whitney versus LaBeouf. We had fun. And coming up in that childhood, man, once again, it was like we created our own world. You feel what I'm saying? And we had fun doing it. And while we're doing all those type of things, so right now, I don't need people around me to enjoy me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't need the city to dictate how much I should enjoy the city when that's all we did. We made sure we found something to do. Right. You know what I mean? That's coming up. That's the thing that keeps me busy now.
Awesome, awesome. So did you grow up with both parents?
Man, no, I grew up, my mother and I had my stepfather. I didn't meet my biological father till I was 14. I'm not sure if all the daddies decided to leave during these years. You know, I don't know if all our daddies was truck drivers, but mine didn't pop up till I was 14, right? But you know, moms did a great job, you know what I mean? And I don't mind saying this, right? And whoever hearing this, whatever young kid, man, I remember going to elementary school, PTA meeting, you know, every kid got their parent coming and kids, you know, my daddy this and daddy that. And man, I walked to home, my mom was shooting dice, you know what I mean? But she took care of her kids, you know what I mean? We always had the shoes, we always had the clothes, we never lacked for anything. We had the jabots, we had all that stuff. And I didn't know I was poor until I got exposed to different tax brackets, and I was like, oh no, we were struggling. And I kept seeing that meat special come in there and you know, like, you know, commodities and all that type of stuff. Like, man, but we didn't feel that. We didn't feel it. You know, the powdered eggs and the powdered milk, we was killing it.
Right.
We like, you go whip it up, going on about your business, but until you get a little, you know, Brussels sprouts and all that type of stuff, you be like, yeah, dog, we was poor. But I grew up, well, my mother and stepfather, but they took care of us, man. And I didn't meet my father until I was 14, and he passed when I was 24. But we had the most amazing relationship in 10 years that I really believe today that if I'd have met him when I was young, I probably wouldn't have turned out the way I am today. But meeting him intensified who I was because I knew how to handle him. And I don't know who watching this, but one person told me when I was angry, I was growing up as a child, my silence was really hidden anger, right? That I really didn't want to talk to people or be around people because I couldn't control my response, my reaction to stuff. So if you talk crazy to me, I say stuff like, I'm gonna kill your whole family. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like mild, is you know, crazy. But somebody told me it was like your daddy couldn't give you no more than what he had. He only can give you what he had. No matter what your expectations are, he only can extinguish what exists on the inside of him. And so I think I had to wait till a certain age to deal with that. You know what I mean? And it kind of threw all that other stuff away.
Awesome. So moving on, still kind of in your childhood, what high school did you go to, or how was that experience for you?
I hate to say it, bro. I hate to say it. I graduated from John Eric. I went to Old Pearl Walker. This one we had Walker Middle, Lil Walker, we used to call it. We used to use the school around Berman Stadium because Walker capacity was just too much. This was me, Milton Collins, Bo Lester, Craig Davis, Travis Berry, all us come up, you know, Corey Callier, all us come up together, right? And all us go to Lil Walk, Keenan Lewis, all us come up, right, together. And we go to Lil Walk, we told them people campus up. The Holy Mary was hanging about. Peter was dangling there. But you know, I graduated from John Eric. My mama said, "Boy, you ain't gonna graduate. Let me shoot you to Jefferson Parish." And I graduated from John Eric. But it was cool though.
So you know, after all of this, what led you to be in the path that you're on now, being a pastor?
Whew, boy, we could be here for hours. And hours. Nothing led me. He had to come get me.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
Well, let me just say this, man. I just knew I had to choose a different path. That's my choice. But I had to accept my call. And I think that's two different things in today's society. You are one of many people who ask me, have I been called? Right? And that's a terminology that people don't use as it relates to the spiritual world, because everybody today is using it as a career. It's never a career, never was intended to be a career. You have to be called by God into it. That's the only thing that sustains you. You heard how I went from gangster talking to spiritual? I'm spiritual now. It's over. I'm in a corner store for real, right? So it was a call from God. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had a dream. And I woke up that morning and I told my mother my dream. My mama laughed at me. She's like, boy, go to school, get dressed. It's time to go to school. And I was like, nah, I'm serious. It was weird. You know, I felt like a weirdo having this dream. And then she said, I'm going to bring you to your pastor, my deceased pastor, Reverend M.B. Watson. And he said, you called? I said, yeah, I'm called. So he said, I'm going to let you preach December the 19th, 1996. And I was like, all right, cool. man, I'm talking church packed, man. He said, and you got to preach on love, right? I was like, nah, what I know about love? I don't got no girlfriend like that, you know what I mean? I ain't trying to fall in love. And it's almost Valentine's Day and Christmas, so you know I don't got no girlfriend. Nah, I ain't mean to say that. But I preach, man, and after I preach, it was this thing that I just couldn't let go. The old preacher used to say it's a burning desire on the inside that cuffs you, that you can't shake it. You know what I mean? You can't run from it no more. And a lot of my family members in prison, man, a lot of my brothers and cousins and uncles and they spent a lot of time in prison. The crazy part is nobody in my family, I'm the first generational pastor. You know what I mean? I'm the first generation of preacher in my family. So everybody like, oh, he tripping. They didn't understand it, to be quite honest, which I didn't even understand it. All I knew was something gripped me, and it was a unique articulation. Every time we had Black History Month, they always picked me to be Dr. King. Different signs was kind of like confirming this is your path, my guy. You know what I mean? And I was like, all right, cool. I was trying to sag my pants and try to holler at everybody, but that wasn't my path like that. The crazy part is when I was in high school, all of we call them boogeymen, dope boys, they find their way to come talk to me. Some way, somehow, I got those type of people is just drawn to me. And I was like, man, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And so that's how I'm on this path, man. I really can't explain it. I've tried to do multiple things, but some way, somehow, I'm always led back here.
So, in that, this question here, I almost feel like I may know, I don't want it to be generic, but just what keeps you inspired to continue to do, what you're doing, and it may be something that I don't know, but I've seen you in different places, even pastoring at my church. So, your inspiration to me just seems like it just comes from the burning wheel of doing God's work, but anything else that you could explain in your thoughts, what would that be for you?
That's a good question though, and I don't think the generic answer would fit in this instance, right? Speaking corner store, whatever, because you can be distracted by multiple things, right? In this space, and let me be as transparent, vulnerable if I could. The only thing that inspires people like me, hopefully people like me, but most importantly me, is to see people's lives transform and to see people's lives become better. That's the only reward we get from this. Money is not a reward. And to be honest with you, my church and everybody know me, I really talk crazy about pastors who use it for profit, right?
Correct.
I think it is robbery. To not know a people, their culture, and to profit off them is robbery, right? But for me to see people like yourself who's motivated and to see your creative juices flowing and every now and then to hear a person like me motivate you to do more, that's my reward. And I don't think people really consider how far that go, right? You have a generation now who says, well, just get a preacher some money, let him go preach and he good. Money has never been my thing. Money has never controlled me. Everybody tell you right now is that money, I send it out because I never want to fall in love with it, and I never want it to control my decision making nor stunt my creative juices, right? So people like yourself and people like Glenn and all these guys who are doing fantastic work, man, that's my harvest, right? I sleep good at night knowing you all headspace good, continue to move. That's the thing that inspired me. My son, my 10-year-old son, he inspired me, of course, always coming with these crazy questions and stuff I've never really asked when I was 10, you know what I mean? So those things inspired me. And the inspiration of believing that our world can and will be a better place if we have people who do it from an organic space of just wanting people's lives to be better, yeah.
So, talking about that, making people's lives better in general, what do you have going on now to, sometimes we come up with new ideas to be like, well, what can I do better to make that happen with more people? Yeah.
So, the beauty of what I do is it has multifacets, right, and multi-phased. Pastor, right, that's Pastor Rock of Ages Baptist Church, and we grew from 3 people to over 900 people now in 9 years, which is a beautiful picture of growth consistency.
Correct.
Then fast forward now on in the morning at 7 a.m. we started this prayer line because once again I felt like the pandemic is happening. Our socioeconomic has abruptly changed. Listen to the steps of socioeconomics: home first, school or work, and then church. Right? Those are the phases of socioeconomics. Well, when all of those things change because of the pandemic, we have now, like, where do people have an outlet? So we started the prayer line. I was like, you got to be visible to be valuable. How about give people a space, a safe space in the morning where they can breathe, also get some positive nuggets, but also it can be some form of therapeutic to people to let them know that it's going to be okay. So we started that prayer line, and we seen a couple of people, but now we see a couple of thousand people every morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. That's one facet. The other facet of what I do is I'm a consultant for multiple people, whether it's politicians, have a couple of mentees who play in the pros, and business owners, everybody, right? And in that instance, to control the narrative, the trajectory of our economy, to say there must be some moral boundaries and barriers that we all have to follow, and nobody is exempt from the accountability of helping people, right? And then on another side, I work with different coalitions behind the scene that says, how can we change the trajectory of our city so we can build the gap between all ethnicities, income barriers and stages and stuff like that. So it's a plethora of stuff that I do. Then I just wrote a book called Driven by Design that touch on some of the purpose and sociological dysfunctions of people, to help them to say, if I'm going to be better, I have to think better. And a lot of this stuff is not I need an explanation as much as I need to accept it, right? And so that's the whole narrative of all of those conglomerate of things. That's probably why you keep seeing me showing up. Right. I'll be at church. It's a lot of places you would never see me, but that's probably why you keep seeing me pop up in different facets, because, in 2022, I think every pastor ought to be a chameleon. He ought to be diverse. He ought to have a portfolio that speaks on all level in his articulation of trying to breathe hope into a community.
And that's actually a great segue to the next question that we're going to talk about, is basically, what do you feel like that should look like today? Because so much has changed, especially with the pandemic, and there's so much going on in today's society. I'm sure you're well aware of everything that's happening. So what do you feel like that should look like today, as far as religion or pastors, or just trying to evolve as just society is evolving within itself?
This is the only generation where the church is not on the front end of social campaigns such as a Black Lives Matter. This is the first time people got together and did something without the church, right? Unfortunately, it puts the church at a disadvantage, because now we don't have the platform to speak to the people from any moral or any consciousness, right? So everybody have these. So if you go to these different marches, you have everything. You have people talk about Mother Earth. You have people talk about this. You have all of these different agendas, because there is no boundaries, right? I really believe that the church should be doing what we've been called to do, and that is to balance culture, right? It's impossible to lead it, because culture is a conglomerate of multiple entities. It is to balance the culture. To say, all right, cool, we got the Indians, we have this, we have that, but at the end of the day, don't forget God in that, right? Here is one of the dysfunctions of the church today, and I hate to say this, is that we are now trying to merge into those spaces, and we forgetting our responsibility is to stay here and not be there, right? So even though we have the wherewithal to write books and to help nonprofits and to consult these people, I know my place. You know what I mean? Some stuff people ask me to do, that's not me. I could do it, but that's not me, right? My job is to stay on this side. Y'all finish doing that side, but hey, don't forget the moral barriers that you have to be. And I think we are failing because we keep on trying to be them. And so we missing the holiness, the spirituality, the they need somebody to come. And it's impossible for you to come to me for advice and both of us at the second line together, though. Come on, I know. I don't know if I should say this at the corner store, but this is how we used to talk when I was getting my meat special. You know what I mean? Like, it's impossible for you to come to me advice if both of us partying at the club together. You know what I mean? Like, some spaces we have to stay out of so we can continue to bring balance to the culture. You know what I mean? That's essential. And I think the church now, the spirituality, not just religion, that's a form of or a practice of to help a person conviction. But I really believe that our responsibility is to bring stability, moral boundaries to our culture. Our culture gonna be our culture regardless, you know what I mean?
Right.
We are a cultural city, period. You know what I mean? We do our thing regardless.
Correct. So, I mean, you kind of moving where we supposed to be going as far as just culture, but in your eyes, what makes New Orleans, New Orleans?
Man, culture. The soul of it.
Right.
You got Chiwis right here. Pac-Man right here. Big Shots. The Fan. It's like I've been everywhere. Dubai, Africa. Man, listen, Haiti. I done been everywhere, all across America. Nobody have culture and soul like New Orleans. To couple with this, and I want to point this out because I don't think we get as much credit as we should, our hospitality is second to none, right? We'll speak to you all day. You know, like, didn't I just see you? Yeah, but hello. Right. But you just told me, yeah, but hello, just keep going. You know, that's our courtesy towards one another. And that's what makes New Orleans, you know you ain't family, but you showed up feel like, you know, poetic justice when Tupac showed hey, cousin.
Right.
You know, I know when they get off the plane, they be wanting to say, man, it's just something about this place that make me feel home. And all of my friends that come down here like, man, I don't know what it's about New Orleans that make you want to relax and just chill and just talk to people and feel the hospitality is crazy. And the culture, of course, because they're not used to all of those different eclectic beats and the all of these different genres of stuff, and of course the way we talk, baby, and you know, the girl like, man, just say baby. I'm like, what you think? I'm a robot? Like I'm a teddy bear or something?
Exactly. And tell us a story yourself that, you know, something that's happened to you that can only happen in New Orleans. And we have many stories, you know, that you could go by. So anybody can come down here. Only this can happen to you in New Orleans.
Man, honestly, man, to go in the corner store and to get everything you need, like bleach, milk, soap, a po' boy. You shopping while they're making your po' boy, or the breakfast. Like, you can't get that nowhere else, man. You can't. It's unique. It has its own unique story. It has its own unique concept.
And you get a lesson, probably.
And you get a lesson. And some old head gonna come up there and tell you about what happened and educate you and drop some wisdom on you, drop some nuggets. Now you walked out the store like, man, I done got my bleach, toothpaste, little bitty toothpaste, noodles, you know what I mean? Get my Chinese noodles. You know? And but that's my storyline, man. I don't have a unique story that happened to me here that only can happen. It's just the cornerstone. I think that's why I was drawn so much to the concept of it, because it's a beautiful depiction of our city.
And another great question we like to ask all of our guests is, anything that you could tell your younger self just based off your experiences now, or just the youth in general? And I know you talk to a lot of them. What is something on the top of your list that you will tell them now?
Man, if I can talk to young Jonathan right now, man, I really just tell him, be confident in his uniqueness. The fear of being accepted for your uniqueness is not weird, because I struggle with, is my imagination's weird? Is these thoughts, the creative space, am I moving outside of the margin lines? You know what I mean? Will they accept me? Will the girls like me? You know what I mean? Like, I used to struggle with all that. It was more of a mental battle than anything. And if I can tell him anything, like I tell my son today, I say, man, just embrace your uniqueness. My son was working on a project a couple of weeks ago, and I decided to help him, just clear my schedule and help my son do his project. And he was building his own civilization. And I just wanted to pick his mind at how creative he was in building that civilization. And I was like, what it looks like. Tell me what it looks like. You know what I mean? And he was just going on and on about the poor and the presidents. And then I dug into his space with my own creative space. And I was like, what about tours for first-time visitors? But back then, it was only football, basketball. You know what I mean? It was a certain thing, and I was petrified for people to know that I was a preacher. I used to, in the church van, man, I used to lay on the floor while we were going through the hood. Once we clear out the hood, I used to sit up there and be like, straighten my tie, like, praise the Lord.
Right.
I was embarrassed, but if I was to tell my younger self, I would tell Jonathan, just be confident in who you are, and just keep plowing, man. It's gonna get better. Everybody else will adjust around you. Just be you.
Awesome. Well, tell everybody where to find you, where to even get the word from you. I know you touched on it, but even in more detail, so we can make sure that they hear it.
You can find me on the block now. Instagram PAS Everett, YouTube JE Ministries, Facebook Jonathan Everett, website jeverettministries.com. And Rock of Ages, 9:15 on Sunday morning and 7 p.m. on Wednesday nights, 1921 North Tonti Street.
Only in New Orleans.